When we were kids, we all did this. Playing for hours, dreaming that one day, maybe, we'll become famous ball players. But the reality is, out of the millions of kids who play ball in the world, only 60 players are selected in the NBA draft each year. Which means, for most of us, that dream is never realized. Growing up in Long Island, one of my sports heroes was a guy named Spencer Haywood, whose hands were so huge, I drew them in class. That's when I realized that my hands weren't made for sports, but for the arts. And he's one of the reasons I started on a path that led me here today. This is the story of one of the greatest basketball players of all time, a man who went from the Olympics to the Supreme Court to fight for his family. Spencer Haywood climbed out of the cotton fields to become one of the best ballers of his generation. He set an Olympic scoring record that lasted decades and dominated as the best power forward in college hoops. When the NBA said he was too young to enter, he fought the power and won, paving the way for thousands of players to this day. He was an ABA and NBA All-Star, burning up the boards on some of the most feared squads in the country. At his peak, Spencer Haywood was the best ball player in the world. He lived a high life and married one of the hottest models on the scene. He had it all, but while on top, it all came crashing down.
How did I get here? I was born on my father's birthday, April the 22nd, 1949, in Silver City, Mississippi. I'm from the smallest town in Humphreys County, and that is saying a lot. If you blink as you drive through, you might miss it.
Silver City is a town with a population now of about 300 people. Back in the 50s and 60s, Silver City was a busting community.
Way back in the day.
It had a juke joint. It had its own post office. It had its own store where you could come to town. And plantation people loved that, coming to town on a Saturday night.
Leroy's Cafe was where everything would happen. This is where the blues was played, right here. But that sign wasn't there. No weapons, no fighting. Every Saturday night there was a fight. Everybody had a knife.
Get up, Pete. Whoa, Sam.
People sung the blues because of the circumstances in their lives.
I feel him. I felt that pain.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, sir. My dad was a carpenter. He built beautiful homes for the white people in this town. And he built the house I grew up in. My dad built all of these homes around here.
But Spencer never met him. His father died 3 weeks before he was born, with a hammer in his hand. His mother, Eunice, was left alone with 10 mouths to feed. So she had no choice but to return to the hot, dusty cotton fields with 1-week-old Spencer swaddled on her back.
This is my history, and this is who I am.
The life was hard on the plantations for black folks back in the 50s and 60s. Cotton was king. You had to pick cotton because that's what you were there for.
Today, everybody used a machine for this. But back in my time, in the 50s, in the 60s, it was all done by poor black people, and that was what we did. And you learn that this was your lifeblood, this cotton field.
In the Mississippi Delta, the cotton fields was the babysitters for the kids that was 4 and 5 years old. They start them picking cotton, pulling a little sack on their back.
This is what I was born to do because of my large hands, and I was told as a kid, son, you're going to be the best cotton picker this county has ever seen because of your size of your hands. This was the lifeblood of my family. This is what we did for a living, and this is what we were all about, cotton.
Slavery may have been abolished by the time Spencer was born in '49, but old habits die hard.
After the Civil War, we as African American black people walked out of one form of slavery into another one, which was called the sharecropping system.
When I was a kid, the plane used to come over and dust the crops with DDT and all of the pesticides, and we stayed in the field.
They would spray them with no concern whatsoever of the people, the young girls and boys and men and women in the cotton field.
Exposure to these pesticides would eventually lead to cancer and an early death for many who worked in the fields.
Mom expected me to pick 200 pounds as a young boy at the age of maybe 6 or 7 or 8. This was salvation for my family in its cruel way. Little did I know that these hands were for something else.
Spencer's mother was a woman that wanted her children to have a better life and the hopes for a better life, but it wouldn't happen in Silver City. The children was hungry, and the mom knew that she had to get up and go to work, because it's one thing to be hungry today, but there's another thing to be hungry tomorrow.
Picking cotton earned Spencer's mother just $2 a day. So, after slaving in the fields, she worked as a seamstress at night.
There were 10 of us kids growing like crazy. We didn't have money to buy clothes, so she made them for us.
Money was tight. I mean, the Haywoods were dirt poor. So whenever they could, Spencer and his brothers found ways to contribute.
The country club provided me an opportunity for caddying. Coming out of the cotton field and getting in here was like a whole nother world. This is where I found myself. When you are caddying for the players, you got a chance to converse and interact with people. Whereas in the field, I was just sitting around singing the blues, trying to figure out how to get out of it.
We used to caddy for the white people. That was our outlet from going to the field, chopping cotton every day, because we made a little bit more money caddying at the country club than we made in the field.
Well, back then, there was no way I could play this course.
I may be poor, but I am somebody.
In the 60s, Mississippi was unapologetically segregated. But it wasn't the only place. When Spencer was 12, word spread of a bus bombing in Alabama. It was 1961, and civil rights activists were riding through southern states, challenging the non-enforcement of integration rulings. But when their Greyhound arrived in Anniston, an awaiting mob of Klansmen slashed the tires and firebombed the bus. The mob then held the doors shut as the flames and smoke ravaged the passengers inside. The Klan fled, which allowed the Freedom Riders to escape.
That was a tragic day, but I'm not surprised. That kind of stuff happened every day. Even the white members we were friendly with made sure we knew our place. One member told me if the civil rights movement got out of hand, he would cut my balls off. I was just a kid. Me and the other caddies would have to be secretive about our fun after the white folks left the golf course.
After the day was over, then we take all our money and go off in the bushes and play cards. You remember that? You remember
Petty Pats and
Yeah, Petty Pats.
Right over there in them bushes.
Over there in the bushes. We gambled till it got black night. Those were the days. Those
The big casino owners.
Those were the days.
This was the first step to escape the field. It opened up everything for me, right here in this golf course. When we were not working or in church, my brothers and I played basketball. We were so poor, it was no way we could afford a ball. My mom made us a basketball out of burlap sack and cotton. This is a ball like my mom made. It was my first ball. One big problem, it didn't bounce. Because it did not bounce, we had to establish rules. You took 2 bops, and you either make the pass or you made the shot. Shoot. Basketball at its finest. Luckily, we did find a real ball in the dump behind our house. My brother Andrew appointed himself man of the house, and he ruled with an iron fist.
Andrew was the bully of Silver City. Everything that Andrew said, that's the way it had to be.
Andrew tormented me, but he taught me to be tough on the courts. We would walk for miles looking for pickup games. And of course, he made me walk 10 steps behind him. All I wanted was his respect.
They played so hard against each other. They were very competitive.
One night as they played in Bookie's backyard, Andrew battled Spencer on the court, knocking him around and trash-talking the entire game.
Pee-wee and those guys were killing us, and Andrew jumped on me and he was like, "You are the problem. You can't do nothing right. You are the downfall of this team." He was just beating me down.
13-year-old Spencer's anger triggered something inside that had never come out before.
The rebound came off the backboard, and I grabbed the ball and I went back up and I dunked it. And everybody was like, "Who is this guy? What did he do? Look what he did, he dunked."
That dunk also triggered something in Andrew.
At the end of the night, my brother started patting me on the shoulder and he said to me, "You're no longer walking 10 steps behind. You're walking along beside me." I'll never forget that night. That was my rite of passage.
As his love for the game grew, Spencer's mom took him to the big city of Belzoni, just 5 miles away, to buy his first pair of sneakers. They cost Eunice $3 and a pecan pie.
This is the big city, downtown Belzoni. Everything happened here. People came in from all of the farms from around, and we would just hang out and walk the streets like we was in Chicago or New York, but we only had 1 block to do it.
Even though it had less than 2,000 residents in the early 60s, Belzoni was the closest thing to an actual city that Spencer had ever seen. But even there, the Klan was rampant. Jim Crow was alive and well, and blacks knew their place. Belzoni's also where Spencer would splurge on a movie, on the off chance he had an extra 10 cents in his pocket.
This is the Crescent Theater. I could never go in through the front. I'd purchase my ticket. We'd walk up the stair and stay in the balcony, because at that time, everything was segregated. Everything here was white and black. I mean, it was for colors only upstairs, whites only downstairs. We had a white water fountain, you had a black water fountain. So it's just the way things were.
Rather than attend high school in Silver City, Spencer chose the all-black McNair High School in Belzoni. On his first day, Coach Charles Wilson recruited the 6'6" freshman on the spot.
Spencer and I was the younger guys on the team, and Coach, he always was looking for somebody he could develop. A lot of times, like, we would be practicing. He'd have him on the sideline jumping ropes or something. He was uncoordinated at the time. He got it together, though, but he was a project.
At first, he was very clumsy, and Coach Wilson at McNair got the best out of him.
This is where it all starts, right here. This tiger. This is hollow ground. I know when people go into the big parquet floors in Madison Square Garden, and they go into the Boston Garden and all of the great arenas throughout the country, that's all fine and well. And that's a holy ground which I played on and I won championships on, but this is the beginning right here on this Tiger.
Once Coach Wilson realized Spencer could ball out, he brought him a pair of white high-top canvas Chucks. Spencer felt like he could fly.
I was like, wow, I got a $10 pair of shoes. I've made the big times now. I have a very special memory of this particular court. It reminds me of the first night I got a chance to really play with the varsity team. My first basket was in that basket right there. I got the ball and I made a layup. It was the perfect shot. It was the perfect basket. And nobody cheered. I was trying to figure out why. And they said, "It's in the wrong basket." But it didn't deter me at all. I just shook it off like, yeah, I'm in the game though.
15-year-old Spencer would become the biggest thing Mississippi basketball had ever seen. But the country boy wanted more. But the only future Spencer could see in the small town of Silver City was a life of backbreaking work in the cotton fields. He knew he had to escape somehow. So Spencer decided to spend the summer of his sophomore year with his brother Andrew, who just moved to Chicago. But when the Mississippi kid stepped off the Greyhound, his excitement turned to disappointment.
I couldn't wait to visit Andrew. Chicago, Chi-Town was the big city. I was quickly disappointed. Andrew lived with a lot of other people in public housing.
Spencer spent most of his days in the ghetto playing pickup games. But when he wasn't, he was miserable.
I was a sophomore at Bowling Green State University in Ohio, and I received a phone call from my half-sister Lena in Chicago. She said, "Your brother's here visiting." So I borrowed one of my friend's cars, and I drove over to Chicago.
I was just 15. If I was to reach my full potential, Leroy knew I had to get out of there. He couldn't take care of me, but Leroy's coach arranged for me to meet someone that could. But I had to go to Detroit.
Detroit was a booming blue-collar town in the early 60s, with the automobile industry at the helm. Urban renewal had uprooted black families and racial tensions were bubbling to the surface. Although Detroit was on the brink of decline, Spencer's life was about to take a major upswing.
Pershing High School, the Motor City. It's a long way from Belzoni, Mississippi. Leroy drove me to meet the most influential person in my life, Coach Will Robinson at Pershing High School. After seeing that I could play, Coach Robinson asked my mother if he could be responsible for me in Detroit. My mom needed me at home, but she wanted me to advance in life, so she agreed.
Will Robinson was a legendary basketball coach and mentor and man and father figure for the Doughboys. Long live the Doughboys.
These kids here, this is the dream. This is what it's all about. And when I see them, I see me. Long live the Doughboys.
I was on the team as a junior. Will Robinson stopped practice and says, "I want to introduce you all to our new player." And I was very close friends with the coach, and he said to me privately, "I think we have a horse."
He was the biggest guy in the city. He was as quick as a cat and as strong as an ox. He did things that nobody had ever seen before.
I was a rookie just coming to the city of Detroit. His coach told me about a great player that he had at the high school level, and he wanted us to meet. I brought several of my teammates over here, and we would play on this court against Spencer and his high school teammates. And even as a high school player, he held his own.
Very few people did backwards dunks back then. He did a backwards dunk shot. Damn!
Wiley Davis was Will's sidekick and a very bright kid who played good basketball, but his greatest value to the team was just being Spencer's friend, you know, keeping Spencer out of any kind of difficulty. The two of them were very, very close.
Will Robinson wanted Wiley to be with me because I was new to the team. He wanted someone to keep an eye on me.
He was a fun guy. You know, he liked to have fun, he liked to joke, and he liked to compete.
You see Wiley, you see Spencer, you know what I mean? It's just kind of unusual to see them together because Wiley was like here and Spencer was up there, but they were inseparable.
This is me when I was in high school, but I wasn't that old. I looked like I had a mustache. Mr. Robinson right there would have like knocked my head off if I had a mustache.
Coach Robinson wanted to keep them off the streets, out of trouble, away from the girls, just focused on athletics.
You cannot be dumb, because when you're dumb, you're going to lose in the fourth quarter. And he didn't like that.
Stern is an understatement when it comes to Will Robinson. If he caught one of his athletes talking to a girl, he'd get this lanyard right off his neck, whap.
They also had to have a buddy. And if your buddy didn't come to school, you got it with the lanyard. And then you went and got your buddy and brought him to school. He would drive students around to bad sections of town and say, you don't want to live here. You don't want your children raised here. He taught them a lot of life lessons.
We used to practice 4 hours a night. You had to have passing grades or better. He was a disciplinarian, and not everybody could handle it. You had a choice. You can do what I say or you can leave, but I will give you a choice. He made men out of boys.
Persian, yeah! Persian, yeah!
All right. Coach Robinson picked up where my mother left off and became my legal guardian. He arranged for his friends, James and Ida Bell, to be my caregivers, even though they had 3 children of their own. This is where I moved with the Bells. They adopted me jointly with Will Robinson.
They opened up their home to Spencer and made him comfortable.
This became my second family and my home. I learned family life, good support, big time support.
Due to the year-round sharecropping schedule and poor resources for blacks in Belzoni, Spencer had what equated to a second-grade education when he arrived as a junior. Celebrated author Wayne Dyer was a young Pershing teacher at the time.
He saw me in the hallway one day and he said, well, look, he would be my personal student.
If it hadn't been for Wayne Dyer, we would have had a real hard time keeping Spencer eligible.
He saw that I was kind of beaten down a little bit because I was walking around with my head down. Because in Mississippi, if you look a white man in the eye, they punch you in the face. You eyeballing me, boy? Wayne said, never, never look down at the concrete. You look at everyone in their eyes. He taught me so much about life. Since then, Wayne has saved millions with his books, but he enriched me too. This is an old school, 1929. A lot of trophies. But this one is very special.
In 1967, Spencer's senior year, he led Will Robinson's Pershing Doughboys to the Michigan State Championship.
It took a Detroit public school a drought of 35 years before we got to the Class A state championship and won it all.
Spencer and Ralph Simpson and that great team was the epitome of the Pershing Doughboy dynasty that Will Robinson built. But he couldn't have done it without the horses, and he had plenty of horses.
A lot of trophies in my career, but this is the first time that I recognized to myself that we were Class A state champions, and it was my real growth spurt. So this was something special.
I've never seen talent to rival the talent that Will Robinson coached and that I coached at Detroit Pershing High School in the mid to late 1960s.
The joy Spencer felt after winning the championship was shattered a few months later.
4 days of rioting, looting, and arson rocked the city of Detroit in the worst outbreak of urban racial violence this year. At least 36 are killed, and damage topped the $500 million mark.
The 1967 Detroit riot began on a Saturday night in the early morning hours of July 23rd when the police raided an unlicensed bar. I was only 6 at the time, but I remember it well.
It erupted. It pretty much spread all across the city. It was more a rebellion against economic circumstances than it was a race riot.
I could see the riots. I could see them vividly on television. I was just heartbroken to see all of the devastation. It was just...
The city was on fire. That's basically what happened. And it was in African-American neighborhoods. And essentially, African-American Detroiters were burning up their own neighborhood. It got so far out of control.
I know that Detroit gets a bad rap, but I came here hopeless. I had no parents here, I had nothing. And I had Will Robinson, Wayne Dyer, Mrs. Bell, all of them took me in. Pershing High School wrapped their arms around me. The city of Detroit wrapped their arms around me and said, we will nurse this baby to life. And for this city to be like devastated like that, I was just heartbroken.
I don't think the city ever has recovered from that, even to this day.
After high school, Wiley and I went to play basketball at Trinidad State Junior College. Colorado was a whole new world. We had never seen so many different kinds of people in our life.
Age 18 was a growing up period. In high school, we were sheltered, but now you're on your own, 2,000 miles from home, and interesting dynamics took place.
I was amazed to see that first Afro on campus. That was a sense of black pride. Colorado was our awakening.
On the court, Spencer not only established himself as Trinidad's best player, averaging 28 points and 22 boards his freshman year, he was the top junior college scorer and rebounder in the nation. But it was a kid named Lou Alcindor who would inadvertently give Spencer his first platform on the world stage. "1967 was a time of great turmoil and racial unrest. By 1968, the entire country seemed to be at war with itself, and the war in Vietnam sparked its own widespread protests. The civil rights movement was at its peak, and Dr. Harry Edwards was a new voice at the forefront.
I was a member of the Black Panther Party. I had an opportunity to work with some stellar people, Malcolm X, Rap Brown, and Stokely Carmichael, and Huey Newton, of course. The whole movement in the 1960s was framed by a broad-based cultural and political movement, a substantial part of it driven by black youths.
At the age of 21, Harry Edwards was pursuing his PhD in sociology at Cornell University.
We saw the civil rights movement on our TV sets. We read about it in our newspapers, but we never saw it in the streets of the traditional black community.
In April of 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and Robert Kennedy was killed 2 months later. We had lost two of our most vocal leaders, and the nation was in shock. With the 1968 Summer Olympics just 4 months away, Edwards knew the civil rights movement needed a drastic approach. Harry Edwards had waged protests before as he studied the plight of black athletes, but none as high profile as the '68 Olympic Project for Human Rights Boycott.
We knew that there would not be a uniform and unified boycott. That was never our goal or standard of success.
Black people, the world-class black athletes have voted to boycott the Olympics. If they can go over there, I don't know where they think they're going to live or where they're going to establish roots or maintain human ties, because they do have to go back to these black communities.
One UCLA superstar who had decided to boycott was Lou Alcindor, known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar today.
He grew up in a New York City that had seen everything from Marcus Garvey to Malcolm X to work discrimination and so forth. And I think that he had pretty much made up his mind that he was going to make a statement, not just because of the politics that were involved, but because of what he had experienced himself.
When Kareem decided to sit out for the '68 Olympics, that left the door wide open for me.
So the Olympic Committee said, what will we do now? Where will we get our players from? So they reached out to undergraduates and, for the first time, junior college players.
Luckily for Team USA, Spencer Haywood was in the right place at the right time.
I was so excited. I was just 18 years old, and just 3 years earlier, I was picking cotton in Silver City, Mississippi. Now I would be representing a country where 3 years ago, I was a second-class citizen, only in America. The Olympic Village in Mexico City was unbelievable. I couldn't get over all of the different kinds of people, black, white, Asian, representing their flag. It took my breath away. We wasn't supposed to win without Kareem, but I took full advantage of my chance invitation, and I dominated. I averaged 16.1 points per game and set a record for the most points that stood for 44 years. Not bad for my first outing on the world stage.
Yet and still, everyone was holding their breath over looming protests that could happen at any time. Basketball great Bill Russell and my hero, Jackie Robinson, endorsed the boycott, as did Martin Luther King Jr.
About 3 months before he was assassinated, I promised Dr. King that I not only would harm no athlete, but I would do everything that I could to make sure that all of the athletes, whether they endorsed or did not endorse the Olympic Project for Human Rights, were safe, that they were able to speak whatever their position was.
And although boycotting hadn't seriously crossed Spencer's mind, officials brought in heavy artillery to ensure the athletes didn't give in to the pressure.
The great Jesse Owens came to us to cool down the idea of protesting. He said, it's the wrong thing for black Americans to do.
America's track star, 22-year-old Jesse Owens, gets ready for the featured event of the day.
To drive home the point, he said, how would you have felt if you had to run before Hitler?
At 10.3, it's an Olympic and world record. Hitler is not amused. Jesse Owens will win 3 more medals to become the greatest hero of the Berlin Games.
He said, if I could do it without protesting, so can you.
I think, if anything, Jesse Owens speaking to the athletes made those athletes who were committed more committed than ever, because he made such statements as, if you do this, if you boycott the games or if you demonstrate, you'll never be able to get a job. And I think it was John Carlos who said, what the hell are you talking about? I can't get a job now. So we passed out buttons to all of the athletes who would take them. We talked about what the options were if you got to the podium.
On October 16, 1968, John Carlos and Tommy Smith won bronze and gold respectively in the 200 meters. At the podium, they raised their black gloved fists as their way of supporting human rights. Whenever I see that picture, I'm moved still to this very day.
The Olympic Committee was so upset that they kicked Tommy and John out of the Olympics. And then they asked Will to come to Mexico City to do some damage control.
Will did go down as a father figure to Spencer, but he went down as more than that, because the Olympic Committee wanted him to lecture that basketball team to make sure that there weren't any black power salutes on the victory stand.
Before he passed away in 2008, Will Robinson privately recorded his innermost thoughts.
They sent for me because Spencer knew how I felt. I explained to them, those who were militant, I said, you are not here to represent the black people. You're here to represent a country. And I said, so we'll put that aside for now. And that's another issue that we'll delve when we get back to the States. But right now, it's us, United States, against the world.
I was never upset about Spencer going to play basketball while Kareem stayed at home. How am I going to get upset at somebody who is trying to make their family situation better, who is trying to raise themselves up with the only tools that they have of any marketable value in this racially oppressive, capitalistic economic system?
And once again, Spencer's God-given tools wouldn't let him down. Not only did he lead the USA basketball team to win gold, he set records in scoring that stood for 44 years. Spencer Haywood returned from Mexico, a bona fide American hero.
I noticed Spencer achieved superstar status, but at the time we didn't know it was called superstar status. We know he was getting a lot of publicity.
After his stellar Olympic performance, Spencer Haywood was the most sought-after college player in the world. He could have taken his gold medal game to any school, but he picked the University of Detroit because they promised Will Robinson the head coaching job of the Detroit Titans.
When I landed in Detroit and I walked through the airport, I saw all these people with signs, Spencer Haywood, a champion and an Olympic gold medalist, and I was like, whoa. That's a surprise. And when I got on campus, the student body accepted me and was welcoming me at the big signs and stuff. I just cried. I was like, I knew I was in the right place at the right time.
The University of Detroit wanted Spencer very badly, and Spencer matriculated there, but part of the deal was that Will was supposed to go to the University of Detroit to succeed Bob Callahan as the coach.
Olympic hero, gold medal, going to the University of Detroit. Oh, this is going to be awesome. Our coach is going to be the coach at the University of Detroit. Wow.
But the season started before Will's deal would be made official.
Basketball standout Spencer Haywood, number 45. Currently the mainstay of the University of Detroit Titans. Haywood's Olympic coach says he is potentially the best player in the game's history.
In Will's opinion, Spencer, at that time, at the age of 19, was the greatest basketball player in the world.
Haywood is a tower of strength on the boards, using his 6'8" height and 230 pounds to full advantage.
He had an amazing average of 21.5 rebounds and 32 points per game. And he was a consensus first-team All-American. It was a great season for Spencer, but there was also bad news.
I'll never forget the day when I heard that Will not be hired as coach.
Somebody in the upper reaches of the administration of the University of Detroit got cold feet because of Will's race, I believe, and they double-crossed him.
Ironically, that type of blatant discrimination was the exact reason Harry Edwards and the OPHR waged a protest at the '68 Olympic Games, and Coach Robinson was more than disappointed.
I was so angry about the whole thing. Not only angry, but disillusioned.
Will doesn't say this out loud, but I'll say it. The board of directors did not want to hire a black man, and they made a big mistake. He said, "It is the worst thing that ever happened to me." And he was betrayed. Spencer was very upset too, of course.
Here, there wasn't any support system, and my one caveat to it all was Will Robinson. And they pulled that rug out from underneath me as well. So I had no support. I was like a ship without a rudder. It was another life lesson, and sometimes when you think people have your back, it changes.
Spencer felt trapped in an unfair system.
Once they got me here, they had me captured. And I was like this wild animal. Well, they got him captured in this cage. We bagged the big one.
Everyone on campus seemed to be profiting from the basketball program, except the players on the court. He knew it was time to move on.
Spencer had every right to say, why should I be here? paying this coach's mortgage, putting money into this university and the NC2A while my family is living in stark poverty, and I can play at the highest level of this game and be paid for it like any other professional.
Spencer knew he could compete with the world's best players, but the National Basketball Association had a rule. A player could not compete in the NBA until he was at least 4 years out of high school. But the flashy upstart, American Basketball Association, decided to overlook it.
We had gone through preseason practice at the University of Detroit, and one day Spencer came in and said, "I'm going pro." I said, "What do you mean you're going? You can't go pro, you have to wait till 4 years." He said, "No, I'm going to the ABA."
I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. What am I supposed to do? I can't eat my gold medal, I can't eat my awards that I've just won, and my family is starving in Silver City, Mississippi. So I took the opportunity to go into the ABA. They left me no choice.
The Denver Rockets of the ABA moved quickly to sign Spencer Haywood to a 3-year contract. The time had come for Spencer to fulfill his mother's vision.
My mother called me the chosen one, so I grew up thinking, I'm going to save my family.
Spencer had not only saved his family, he breathed life into the ABA. He led the league in scoring with 30 points and 19 boards per game. Spencer was named Rookie of the Year and the league's most valuable player. He's the only player in any professional basketball league to claim all 4 honors in one season, and he did it as a 20-year-old rookie.
I always played with a lot of passion. I didn't back down from anyone, even as a rookie. Being the youngest player, I was being tested every night. Sometimes my intensity turned into brawls. I was a young player playing in a man's game, and the men always tested the young buck.
In his rookie year, he sparked the Denver Rockets to his first ever division title, and the team played before sold-out crowds at a record 21 home games.
Playing in the ABA was a lot of fun because all of a sudden I had the freedom to do moves, to play in a free and open style of basketball.
Word of Spencer's incredible abilities was starting to spread in the world of basketball.
He was a man-child. The things that he could do on the court, when we saw glimpses of him playing, then you saw exactly what kind of talent this man had.
Spencer was also voted the most valuable player in the ABA's 1970 All-Star Game.
I was averaging 30 points and 20 rebounds a game for 82 games.
If you look at his numbers, he averaged rebounds like a power forward, but he had the ability to spread the floor like a small forward.
I had a record-breaking year. I had played tremendously. I was the Rookie of the Year, leading scorer, leading rebounder. We had increased the fan base. We had increased revenue for the ABA. So the ABA and the Denver Rockets decided that they will reward me with the highest paid contract in basketball history at $1.9 million. Let me run that by you in case you missed it. $1.9 million.
It made him the highest paid basketball player on earth, or so it seemed. Spencer later learned that he had a bum contract.
It was not real money, it was fake money.
Instead of being the $1.9 million man, the fine print revealed he would earn less than half that amount over his lifetime. He felt misled and betrayed, and he wanted out.
That bad contract triggered the turning point.
Leaving the ABA was Spencer's only viable option. So his attorney contacted the owner of the NBA's Seattle Supersonics, Sam Shulman, to gauge his interest in the young superstar. Hall of Famer Lenny Wilkins was a player coach with the Sonics at the time.
The owner had talked to me and said that we had a chance to get a young man named Spencer Haywood, and what did I think? And I knew who Spencer was, so I was saying, wow. I said, if you can get him, that would make our team, because we didn't have a power forward with that kind of skill. 6'8", 6'8", 6'9" power forward that could dribble, could pass, could run, all the things that, as a coach, that you want in a player. Then I found that there was going to be some legal entanglements that might follow.
Before I came along, you had to wait 4 years after your high school class had graduated in order to play in the NBA.
Although Spencer had only been 2 years removed from high school, Sam Shulman did the unthinkable and signed the Phenom for the 70-71 season. Spencer was that good.
Sam was willing to go the extra step, and where a lot of owners didn't want to be bothered with it, they were more concerned about their team and whatnot. But Sam wasn't afraid to take the challenge on.
But the budding star was about to leap from the frying pan into the fire, encountering obstacles beyond his imagination.
When he left the ABA, they sued him for violating his contract. At the same time, he was suing the NBA for not letting him in because he hadn't been in college for 4 years or his college class hadn't graduated. And the NC2A had joined the suit on the side of the NBA because if Spencer won, they all of a sudden would be losing athletes that otherwise would be putting money into university and NC2A coffers. It's really difficult for a black man to take those stands in that situation. You know, everybody look at it now like, yeah, you can do that now because you got ESPN and you got Twitter and you can make a social stance. But it's very difficult back in those days to make a stance.
You should have the right to work. You should have the right to earn a living. You know, if you graduate from high school and you're talented enough to make it, why should we stop you?
Golden State Warriors president Rick Welts was a ball boy when Spencer joined the Seattle Supersonics. And the anticipation was palpable.
He was the biggest celebrity Seattle had ever seen at any level. Could he really be as amazing as everybody said he was at such a young age? And how would it impact the other players on the team? I don't remember hostility, but I do remember it being very anxious because somehow his arrival was going to affect everybody in that locker room, but nobody knew quite how. I can vividly remember that first game because Spencer wasn't there pregame. He knew he was coming that day. He was flying in. The locker room kind of was very anxious.
A new city, a new team. I was nervous, but excited to play my first NBA game. I didn't know how the Seattle fans and my new teammates would react.
Players came out on the court to warm up before the game. The stands were buzzing when this guy emerged from the tunnel in a Seattle Supersonics uniform, literally having to shake hands with his new teammates on the floor, and the crowd absolutely going nuts. This was the biggest thing that had ever happened in Seattle, Washington. We had a bona fide star coming to play for the Sonics.
Seattle turned out to be the perfect place for me to go through this battle. The fans, the people of Seattle, they embraced me.
Seattle was unique. When I first came here, I was just blown away by the people, how willing they were to help you achieve.
But NBA players were a little different. They weren't fazed by the instant superstars. Respect had to be earned. Plus, some veterans worried that if the ruling eventually passed, that a flood of young players would squeeze them out.
There's a little jealousy, naturally. I don't think it should have been, because he was only going to make it better for them. So it was tough, and it became a huge distraction.
Although Spencer won temporary injunctions, allowing him to play for the Sonics, he missed several games due to court appearances and official protests from opposing teams.
Once I received my injunction to play. I walked out on the floor, and the announcer came on. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an illegal player on the floor, and this game will not count. It is under protest.
Away teams would often refuse to play if Spencer was on the floor, which enraged fans.
Thousands of fans booing and yelling, throwing bottles on the floor, and screaming things that I had heard in Mississippi long before. This is unreal. I felt like I am right back where I started.
At one away game, Spencer wasn't allowed to be on the property of the arena, so he was relegated to stand outside in the snow.
It was brutally cold, and I'm 20 years old, a kid standing out there, but I didn't understand the battle. My mother always said, if I didn't stand up for something, you'll fall for anything.
But Spencer didn't back down. Even though he was fighting on behalf of his own career, his fight had consequences for everybody who was in similar circumstances.
Once you take a league to the Supreme Court, you're gonna be labeled a troublemaker. That's just the way it is.
I knew that I had to fight. What else do you do? All I wanted to do was just play basketball and save my mom.
But I think he was particularly cut out for this mission. He was incredibly strong and wise beyond his years because of the life experience that had gotten him to that point in time.
The legal battle wiped out my first season. I spent more time in court than on court. When the world was against me, Lenny Wilkins was there to take me over the hump.
There was no one to kind of mentor him, and I could see that. And so I thought that, well, fine, I'll take the time to help him because we all need somebody to encourage you. And we became friends, you know.
But one fateful evening in Milwaukee, the tide began to turn for the ostracized player.
Kareem reached over and gave me a dap, which solidified the idea that game is on and we're gonna show the world who are the two best players in the NBA.
That public endorsement by one of the league's most respected players is what finally broke the ice. Soon, fans and other players followed suit. After a series of injunctions and legal maneuverings, the case made its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And in March 1971, the judges, including Thurgood Marshall, voted 7-2 in Spencer's favor.
When I found out we had won the case, I felt free again. I felt that I could go into an arena and just play basketball, something that I've always loved. I mean, I got the disease, and I was a player that truly, truly loved to play basketball. I remember Thurgood Marshall telling me, Spencer, you're gonna always be ostracized for this, so be prepared. You might have bright days of playing, but somebody's gonna always bring this to your attention, and there's gonna be some anger. So be prepared, young man, be prepared.
The hardship rule was implemented, which allowed players to enter the league early as long as they could prove financial need.
The case was won when the attorney said, well, we gotta prove that you're a hardship case. And Spencer said, that's not a problem. He said, all you gotta do is go down to my hometown and take some photographs of how we're living. And he did. And he brought him back and showed him to the juror, and that was it.
Guys like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, they all came into the NBA under my ruling and made millions of dollars because they didn't have to wait for the 4 years.
Guys like Spencer are important and significant because we're reaping all the benefits today. And God bless these guys, what they make today, but I think they have a moral obligation to go back and look at what guys like Spencer did for the NBA.
With the distraction of the lawsuit gone, Spencer became unleashed. He was listed on the All-NBA's first team in 1972 and 73. His 29.2 average during his second season and 13.4 rebounds during his third are still single-season records for the Sonics to this day. Spencer dominated in 4 NBA All-Star games while with Seattle, and during his last season, he led the Sonics to their first playoff showing. During his 5 seasons with Seattle, Spencer averaged 21 points and 12.1 rebounds per game.
When you look at his numbers, like, those numbers can't be true. You know, those numbers can't be true.
This guy had his physical ability. I mean, the long arms, the big hands. He could pick the ball up like it was a grapefruit, you know, and that's amazing.
He was young, he was handsome, he was single, he lived in a high-rise apartment building. He lived in a way that the rest of us could only imagine. I think people really gravitated to that.
My friend Phil Knight had a little shoe company called Nike, and he wanted a big star to promote his shoe. He offered me stock in the company or cash. And my agent decided to take the cash option. I have lost a lot of sleep over that deal because I would have had millions of dollars, billions, raining money.
In addition to Lenny Wilkins, Spencer was lucky enough to be coached by the great Bill Russell. Seattle was a magical time for the NBA star.
I think he was the first bona fide real pop celebrity that the city had ever had. He owned the town.
He may have owned the town, but in 1975, the Sonics traded Spencer to the New York Knicks. What seemed to be a spectacular move for the Sonics would prove to be the stimulus for Spencer's downfall. The 25-year-old from the Mississippi backwoods was suddenly thrust into the chic Manhattan social scene.
The Knicks are huge in New York, and it's a tradition and a legacy that any native New Yorker appreciates. And I watched as much of them as I could while I lived in New York.
His teammates were future Hall of Famers Earl the Pearl Monroe and Bill Bradley, who welcomed Spencer's arrival.
He was an extremely congenial teammate. He was somebody that was easy to work with. He was someone who didn't hold any kind of negative feeling about any of his teammates. And he wanted to win like each of us did.
And they needed to win.
Spencer Haywood, well, he can do things with the ball. Monroe.
Although the Knicks had struggled in previous seasons, they still had a hardcore fan base. And when a reporter asked a simple question, young Spencer put his foot in his mouth, big time.
Someone yelled out, the Knicks was expecting me to save the franchise. So I said, I shall save. I didn't think about it at the time, but boy, did they beat me down for years after that.
I also had the experience of being the savior when I came in 1967. So when he came, he was going to be the savior, right? And of course, there isn't one person who ever can be a savior.
Everywhere I would go in New York, fans would shout out, "What happened, Savior?" Especially if we lost the night before. New York fans are very smart, but they can be very vicious.
There's no one grooming you, mentoring you on how to handle professional stardom. You're figuring this out on your own.
When, it got a little rough, I figured, well, might as well share with him my experience of being spit on and having coins thrown at me and everything else. I think that meant something to him, and it certainly meant something to me to be able to share that experience with somebody who was kind of going through it.
Spencer went from a comfortable role on the Sonics to being the new guy under a microscope. He held his own, but New Yorkers don't play, and it wasn't enough.
And there they go, Spencer Haywood.
I was in the top 10 in scoring and in rebounding my first year with the Knicks. But it was the first time in 10 years the Knicks were out of the playoffs. And boy, did the fans let me know it.
New York can love you when they love you. And when they hate you in New York, they hate you.
I watched him play in New York, and I thought he needed somebody there to kind of look out for him because he was a young guy. And now all of a sudden you're exposed to so much.
And that somebody came in the form of a Somalian model, Iman. It was 1976, and Iman was fast becoming the it girl on the New York fashion scene. And man, she was incredible. She was off the charts. Iman was just 21 when she and Spencer married.
He told me, hey, I got married. What, you got married? Yeah, I married Iman, she's a model. Oh my God, you married her? So he was Mr. New York, a superstar with a superstar wife, and all the trimmings that go with that.
Iman was worldly beyond her years and exposed Spencer to wealthy tastemakers, artists, and musicians.
You have this beautiful man and this statuesque woman. They were beautiful. They were beautiful people. I think New York loved them.
In 1978, daughter Zuleika was born. Spencer happily embraced fatherhood.
Zuleika was the best thing that ever happened to us. It gave us a sense of family, and we just smothered our young daughter with love. Iman and I were a very public couple, but once we had Zuleika, we wanted privacy. And New York people and New York fans gave us our privacy and let us live.
People would come up with him and with my mother and talk to them or ask for their autographs. New Yorkers tend to really leave you alone and let you just do your thing. When he was home from a game or from a stretch of time, he spent as much time with me as he could because he knew that it was only a matter of time before he had to leave again. So we were very close.
He wasn't conforming to what anybody else thought he should do. He was living his life the way he wanted to live his life, and he had it all.
And that included magazine covers and partying with the New York elite.
We hung out with Andy Warhol, Estee Lauder, and all of the beautiful, beautiful people of New York.
Spencer and Iman were probably the first president and first lady of New York. This is why reality television is so popular today, but the same curiosity about stars existed back in the 70s. Fans loved him, and it didn't hurt that he could play.
Spencer was a VIP at New York's hottest clubs, where doing coke was the norm.
Back in the 70s, cocaine was presumed to be, hip, and few people acknowledged that it was even addictive. I mean, you'd go to clubs and people were snorting cocaine in the bathrooms, and it was considered a recreational drug, something maybe a little more powerful than alcohol.
I was not surprised that athletes became part of that scene because they literally connected the African-American community and the glamour class at the top.
Spencer was closing in on age 30 when the 1978-79 Knicks season began.
I was injured for most of that season and only played a handful of games, averaging 18 points per game and 6 rebounds. It seemed like my New York dreams were fading for me and my family.
Spencer was considered past his prime by some. New York was beating him down, and basketball was no longer fun. But 30 games into his third season on the Knicks, Spencer was traded to the New Orleans Jazz.
I thrived in New Orleans, but mid-season, the Jazz announced they were going to move to Utah, and that was not going to work out for Iman and her fashion career. Luckily, the Lakers were looking for a big power forward, so Kareem and Magic could concentrate on scoring. So they signed me for the 1979 season.
Pat Riley, who dubbed Spencer Woody, was the Lakers' assistant coach for most of the 1979-80 season.
His reputation was of a massively talented player, somebody who could really play the game and also would be a great complement with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Spencer's timing is extra ordinary. I mean, he could palm it, he could block shots so well. You look up and he have 20 points, 5 or 6 block shots, or you'll look up and he'll have 10, 12 rebounds.
We had Norm Nixon, Michael Cooper, Jamal Wilkes, and so all of a sudden our team started to look like it might be something.
On the turnover, Haywood gets inside.
Feeling good about his move to LA, Spencer dove into the Hollywood party scene soon after he arrived for the preseason.
Freebasing had just come on the scene, so I tried it one night at one of those lavish parties. That first hit was like nothing I've had before. I knew I was in trouble. It took me on a demonic trip.
When you're young and strong and good-looking like he was, you think you can overcome a lot of things. And I'm sure he felt it wasn't going to affect him, that he could weather it. But no one does.
Unless you bring it into practice, or unless people can really take a look at you in a game and say, you know, there's something not right with this player, then usually you didn't know.
But the cracks were beginning to show. Spencer was often late to practices and faked illnesses just to miss games and get high. All he could think about was his next hit.
I sabotaged my whole year. Not that I chose to do it, but the drug chose it for me. I came to the Lakers after the second half of the season, averaging 25 and 12. By mid-season, I watched my game go down to 16 and 7.
But the Lakers, as a team, were doing great. It was early 1980, and they had made it into the playoffs without much help from Spencer. As a result, head coach Paul Westhead kept him on the bench.
The straw that broke the camel's back with Woody was the fact that he wasn't playing, and he was furious. He was a competitor, and he wanted to play. But you can't play somebody who's high, and he's coming to games high.
The nature of this drug, you start doing things that you never thought you would do. You shut yourself off in bathrooms, and it just shoots all through your body and then through your brain. It was so demonic, it was as if I could see the devil crawling through the light bulb. By the end of the season, I watched my game go down to 7 points and 5 rebounds. And I was 20 pounds lighter.
It became obvious that Woody wasn't right, very obvious, and we could see it.
It was the Lakers and the Philadelphia 76ers in the NBA Finals. After an all-night coke bender, Spencer took a few Quaaludes to bring him down before their morning workout.
We had just come out of a film session, and during the session, he was in the back of the room. He had absolutely fallen asleep. When we went out on the court then to practice, we get in a circle and we stretch. And, you know, sometimes you have to lay on your back and stretch, and he fell asleep there on the court.
Coach Westhead was fed up and kicked Spencer off the team during the 1980 Finals.
We went on to win the championship that year, and Woody wasn't part of that. And I felt bad for him.
It was brutal what they did to me. I didn't get my full playoff share. They didn't allow me to receive my championship ring. My pictures were removed from the championship. It was the most inhumane thing you could do to a teammate and a family.
His career, friendships, and marriage were hanging by a thread.
Iman and I was having problems because she was not an abuser of that drug. And she didn't understand what had happened to her husband.
Spencer may have blamed the system, but Will Robinson blamed himself.
As he will tell you, that was a fault, because I wasn't around. If I'd been around, it wouldn't have happened.
I know that Will was disappointed. And I also got the feeling that Spencer walled him out. He was probably embarrassed because Will had been his dad and done so much for him in his life.
I shut everyone out. I was in my own demonic world.
Here was somebody who not only had the gift of his athleticism, but also had worked so hard to become such an incredible player. And to see it just evaporating, and to see it happen so quickly and so visibly, just incredible sadness.
If you do it enough, it's going to take you down. And so that was sad for me to see that when it started to affect his life.
At just 30 years old, Spencer's reputation was shot, and the NBA career he once fought for was all but forgotten.
I was a broken man, wondering how it all came to this.
His best friend, Wiley, has a theory.
I've always said to Spencer, I thought you dabbled in this because of what they now call post-traumatic stress disorder. What you went through with that court manifested itself later. And this was a way of coping without even knowing what coping was all about.
But Spencer would have to learn new coping skills in Italy, where the Lakers sent him to finish out his contract.
I wasn't allowed to go to any other team in the NBA, but in order to get the contract I just earned, I had to go.
But playing ball in Italy was just what the doctor ordered.
I saw changes in Spencer. Italy was a breath of fresh air, a chance to reflect and get his game back. He looked good, he was clean, and he enjoyed basketball again.
After his year in Italy, Spencer played for the Washington Bullets. But halfway through his second season, Iman was in an automobile accident. He left the team to care for her in New York, but he knew he couldn't stay there for long.
There was no way I could stay in New York and stay clean and sober.
Spencer moved to the quiet suburbs of Detroit with Zuleika, but the distance took its toll. Soon, his 10-year marriage and playing days were over. Spencer set out on a pilgrimage for answers.
A big part of my recovery was going to Egypt to learn my history that was missing from my life. It taught me that my tribe of people had went through so much. For me to squander everything away just because of some white powder in Egypt really turned me around for sure.
During his lifelong quest of self-discovery, Spencer revisited his Mississippi roots.
Jeez, wow, my gosh, this is my house, man. Wow, it's nothing left. I didn't think it would be burned down, I really didn't. There was a lot of serious drug use here. There's somebody been smoking crack out of this here. It's the way it is. I mean, you get an abandoned house, some people squatters and use drugs or whatever. The scourge of drugs. Between these two, the alcohol and the drugs, total destruction. But that's life. I didn't intend to go this deep into it, but that pipe set it off.
Spencer never forgot the city that gave so much to him.
This is Circle Drive Commons. I built these along with my partners in 1992.
He came from a background where people helped him succeed. And what he's doing is paying back.
I was not only building here, but we were rebuilding this whole city. And it was also rebuilding my life inside out. So this is part of my therapy.
Also therapeutic was creating his Spencer Haywood Foundation, offering vocational training to the Detroit community. He immersed himself in civil service, using his story as a cautionary tale.
I brought him in to talk to the kids, and he mesmerized them with his stories about the Olympics and about playing in the National Basketball Association. But he also told them about the drugs, and they were hanging on his every word.
I'm very proud to say I have been clean for over 28 years. I have 4 beautiful and accomplished daughters. Zuleika graduated from Michigan State University. Isis graduated from UNLV. Shakira is working on her PhD. Courtney has 2 masters, and she gave me my first grandson.
Spencer's been married to Detroit native Linda for over 25 years.
He's a hard worker. He's always looking for new ideas, and he likes to just, explore different opportunities. He doesn't look as threatening as one might think because of the height. He's always teasing little kids when they walk by. He's like, "Hey, little fella," and they'll look up at him because he's so tall. But he's always been a prankster and jokester and happy-go-lucky kind of guy.
Linda has been an amazing life partner. And Iman found love again, too. She married the legendary artist David Bowie, and he was a good guy. He even invited me to be his guest at his concert in Detroit.
But Spencer's no slouch. In 2007, the Seattle Supersonics finally retired the almighty number 24 jersey. And in 2015, the Seattle Seahawks presented Spencer with their highest honor, the 12th Man Award.
Sometimes you feel like people have forgotten, but Seattle has not. Those are two great moments that I'm very grateful for.
The sad thing about the whole Spencer Haywood and guys like that is the guys today are really reaping the benefits. We got guys making $20, $30 million a year, and God bless these guys what they make today, but I think they have a moral obligation to go back and look at what guys like Spencer did for the NBA.
Over the years, Spencer hasn't been shy about giving the young guns a history lesson.
The first time I met Mr. Haywood, he cursed me out. He went up to me and said, "You know who I am?" I said, "No." He just grabbed me. "Well, you need to know I paved the way for you. If it wasn't for me leaving early, you wouldn't be able to leave early." I was like, "My bad, brother."
I think a lot of people don't understand the history of Spencer Haywood. He was the first, opening doors for a lot of people to come through. Without Spencer Haywood, there wouldn't be Kevin Garnett.
Spencer was content. His demons had been eradicated, and his goals had been reached, except one, the Hall of Fame. In the 35 years since playing professional ball, Spencer has watched a myriad of current and future Hall of Famers benefit greatly from the early entry ruling that he's responsible for. But ironically, the Hall of Fame had eluded him.
Unfortunately, his career was bookended by the court challenges on one end, and then the drugs on the other end, and the tremendous basketball skill set that was on display for the better part of 14 years was more or less forgotten. I think that's why it took so long for him to really get due consideration for the Hall of Fame.
So I would say, we just have to pray and stay focused and stay positive. It's going to happen if it's meant to be.
People didn't talk about it. You didn't see him on ESPN highlights.
And for a great player who clearly was blackballed, to not be in the Hall of Fame, should have been in there probably 10, 15 years ago, realistically. There's a lot of jealousy on reporters. If they don't like a guy, they're not going to give him the credit and respect he deserved.
And I think it took a while for people to refocus on what he meant to the history of the game, and there was some healing probably that had to happen, and time away from the end of his career, I think, eventually helped that.
After more than 3 decades of being passed over, Spencer had finally gained peace and understanding.
I realized something my mother always taught me. It's in God's hands.
But 2015 brought divine intervention during a televised pregame discussion.
But I think in this era one and done, I think the NBA Hall of Fame will never be complete until the first guy who made it possible for myself and all the guys to go pro, Spencer Haywood.
Charles is an incredible guy. He says what's on his mind.
For him not to be in the Hall of Fame is a travesty.
He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks, whether you like it or don't like it, and I like that about him.
We have this argument every year about one and done. We had it X amount of years ago about not going to college at all. So I've been on both ends of the spectrum talking about it.
Charles Barkley was like a guardian angel for me that night.
It's like as soon as you take your eye off of something and you reach a place of acceptance around that, then the blessings just come.
Personally, I told him, I said, be patient. I'm pretty sure it'll come through. And sure enough, it did.
After almost 35 years and 2 false alarms, Spencer got the call. He was finally going to be inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame.
Everything was drained out of me because it was such a battle to get there. I shared a tear, and I felt the presence of my mother at that moment.
Welcoming Spencer to the Hall of Fame are Charles Barkley, Lenny Wilkins, and Bill Walton. Ladies and gentlemen, Spencer Haywood.
September 11, 2015, Spencer Haywood joined his Hall of Fame class, and I couldn't have been happier for him.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for letting me join this great fraternity of great athletes, and I mean truly special and great athletes and great human beings.
I was so happy for Spencer because he deserved it.
Spencer Haywood is in the Hall of Fame because he was one of the greatest players, trailblazers ever.
This day wasn't about me. It was about people getting to know my story. And if I can overcome adversity, so could they.
I'm really happy for him because I know this is something that he wanted pretty much all his life.
Remember, guys, I had game. It was not like I just did this Supreme Court thing. I had some serious game. Thank you, and God bless you.
I'm really proud of my dad for this accomplishment. For him, this is something that he's wanted his whole life, and I think this is something that he's been waiting for to kind of complete his career.
He's in a different place emotionally and spiritually also. He knows who he is now.
What he knows, we know he knows that he messed up, you know? But in the end, the good man took care of him. And he's right where he belongs. He belongs in the Hall of Fame with the rest of the great players.
He don't have to worry about it anymore.
I hope that these young guys go back and look at his journey, you know, because it's an amazing journey.
However amazing, Spencer knew his journey wouldn't be complete until he retraced the steps that got him here.
I love it here. This is my birthplace. The people here are genuine and have always supported me. My oldest buddies and I made memories I will never forget.
I love it, Deb. You know, I could dribble the ball. I knew I couldn't shoot over you, but I'd be trying. I'm not going to let the opportunity pass. Could I have your autograph, please?
I sure will.
I appreciate it.
You knew me when I was knee-high, too, when I got lost downtown.
That's right. Bill's on is proud of him.
Everybody knows Spencer Haywood. I mean, he's the biggest thing that ever happened to this part of the world. Everybody in Humphreys County is very proud of him because what it does, it gives our kids encouragement. It lets them know that you can come from a small place like Silver City and you can achieve great things. And all you have to do is put forward the effort, you know? And if you do that, you'll be just like Spencer.
In 1968, when Spencer returned from Mexico, the people of Silver City wanted to hold a homecoming parade for their returning hero. But Spencer didn't go.
My mother really wanted me to attend that celebration, but I had gotten too big for my britches, and I had erased that part of my history. On my mother's deathbed, I asked her, what would be the most disappointing thing in my life? She said, not making it to that parade, because it was a day that everybody was going to celebrate the joy of what I had done to raise you kids from nothing. And I wanted that celebration. And I just sit there and cry. I see now that Spencer Haywood Day wasn't about me. It was about thanking my mother in the city of Silver City in Belzoni. Those people wanted their celebration, and I cheated them out of it.
But 47 years later, Spencer got that second chance.
Spencer Haywood's homecoming celebration here in Belzoni.
The whole community heard that young Spencer, who is a tall, handsome man, is in town. The school said, you know, Spencer didn't make it to the Spencer Haywood Day, but he's here now. Let's show him some Mississippi love.
All the way to the Olympians, all the way to the NBA.
Thank you so much, and it's good to be home. I remember making my first basket at McNair High School.
And the gymnasium was rocking with cheerleaders and old teachers and old teammates and old classmates. So let us give Spencer Haywood a second chance to show you that we really love you.
I did not expect this, and I am thoroughly pleased and very honored that you have done what you have done here. And all of you young people up there, just remember, I was just like you, sitting here sometime and wondering, am I going to ever get out, or am I going to ever do something big? You can do it too, right here in Belzoni. You can do it today. Just keep your mind in the books. So you got a chance, and you got a chance, you got a chance. Do what you can, and make sure that you continue to grow strong. So thank you.
While the civil rights movement was making strides throughout his life, Spencer was busy breaking barriers of his own. His story is a testimony that we all can overcome, and his impact will be felt long after we're gone.
I want hope, not the hall, to be my legacy.
Blocked by Spencer Haywood. Haywood goes to work.
Some say I was a militant, a renegade, and a troublemaker. I am Basketball Hall of Famer Spencer Haywood.
Can something good come out of a place called Silver City? And the name of that something good is Spencer Haywood.
Change, never the same. Revolutionize the game. Free the game, free the mind. Who they blame, free agent names. Supreme Court, change what ballers got. Today, the league is hot. History all but forgotten. Untold truth, rotten. Behind the rock in three-point shots. Yeah, everything and nothing to lose out of school. The Spencer Haywood rule. The Spencer Haywood rule. Here the Supreme Court stated and debated. Do these young cap ballers appreciate it? Price the hands of Haywood, he paid it, so they made it. Hey, would you let the man in? Yeah, I'ma spit it again. These days the league is so hot. Now everybody want what ballers got. History is not as popular, thus many fans forgot. No NBA like it is today, so y'all just think Spencer a lot. What y'all see on TV, so big, so huge, thank the basketball gods. Free the game from restraint, we're only no ownership game. Broke it open for so many names, to go pro from having no shot. Who's this man who gave it change? Oh yeah, game. Hey, it would never be the same. He freed the game. Hey, it would never be the same. He freed the game. Hey, it would never be the same. He freed the game. Hey, it would never be the same. He freed the game. Everything and nothing to lose out of school. The Spencer Haywood rule. The Spencer Haywood rule. Rule. The Spencer Haywood rule.